Oh, that might happen.
Meeting's called to order, agenda, good, minutes being reviewed. Which agenda was this, or which minutes was this?
Yeah, it was January 21st,
Here's what we have here.
page 3 of 6. Because there's 130 homes on Wellsville Road.
Yes, I do not believe there are 130 homes on Wells Woods. I drove down last weekend.
Oh, yeah, so that just wouldn't want to keep repeating that if it's incorrect.
I don't know who said that originally, but we can,
I can ask the Zephyr to just tell us how many homes are on Wellswood.
Maybe 30.
I think that's actually much closer to the correct number, so
Right.
we'll leave that as a confirm that for it's officially approved. All right, any other corrections? Hearing none, the minutes for January 7th and December 17th are approved as corrected. Audience of citizens, empty chairs, old business, nothing. New business, review and recommendation of speed control and safety alternatives for Ward of Selectmen. So way back in the month of January, we discussed presenting other options to the Board of Selectmen to complement the recommendation that we have already submitted to them. There was discussion of a variety of options. Some members of this committee took it upon themselves to go off and research them, consult with other towns as to how they have approached using those alternatives. And so this is basically going to be an open forum for us to discuss the alternatives we would like to consider, with the idea that we would probably put recommendations to a vote to present to the Board of Selectmen. And I think it would also behoove us to explicitly state whether we do not recommend something. We neutral on something, say we don't feel particularly enthusiastic either way, but if there's something we would actively like the Board of Selectmen to not pursue, that's something we consider as well. So I'm gonna open up the floor. So let me know if you wanna throw out a recommendation for us to discuss. Anybody online? Share, go ahead.
Speed bumps on Whitney Road, that was something.
So speed bumps in general, we've discussed speed bumps, humps, tables in brief before. Jeff, I know you had some thoughts on those, if you want to fill us in on your thoughts.
Yeah, I've reached out to Mansfield. I'm working on getting a contact that would have all their data, minutes for people, complaints and all that. Been busy 2 weeks for me, so I plan on hoping getting to the next meeting and have a report from them. Also reaching out to the town of Manchester. They've had some too, and hopefully we can talk more in general about them, but I don't recommend them from the fire service as the chief. Just that's my opinion, only my opinion. So, but I'm going to bring back the data to this committee.
Can you elaborate on the impact that speed bumps, humps, and so forth have on fire equipment and response?
Yeah, so fire truck doesn't have the suspension system that your normal vehicle would have. We'll just talk about the tanker. It's a 46 ton vehicle that is carrying 3,000 gallons of water, and that suspension system is there to take the load of the in the shift, not for going down bumpy roads. And if we have to go down bumpy roads and all that, especially going over a speed bump, we basically have to crawl over them. Not saying we're speeding to calls, but we would have to slow way down when we hit these bumps within our town to get down these roads. And it's no different than the conversations we had about cameras. You're going to slow down and then you're going to speed back up. So let me come back with the data. We'll talk about it then.
Okay. just so we're all on the same page, when we're saying speed bumps, humps and tables, they are three distinct items, and I could talk about the exact differences for over an hour, but to summarize, speed bumps are probably what you think of most is the shorter ones, maybe a foot, foot and a half wide, and they're usually the tallest ones. In my experience, speed bumps are actually least effective as a speed control measure because they affect your vehicle the most when you slow down for them. You'll feel them the most. The irony is a traditional speed bump, best way to handle them is to go over them fast. Your car will barely feel it. Don't tell everyone that. I know it's on public record, but this is just a weird fact. People think they see a speed bump, they need to slow down. It's actually the opposite, which is why they came out with speed humps, which are much wider, generally either as tall or slightly shorter, but they cover a longer area. And that actually does what they had intended to do with speed bumps, which is if you're going fast and you go over a speed bump, you're gonna rocket over it. You're gonna feel like you're going over a ramp, like speed bus style. And so you feel the impact the least as you're going over a hump at a lower speed. They aren't, because they're not quite as tall, they're not generally as affecting of how vehicles are put together. You're not going to damage vehicles quite as much, at least from what I've read. But they are dramatically different from speed bumps in terms of how well they function. And then speed tables, kind of newer. If you ever see what looks like a crosswalk and it's either brick or some other type of material different from the regular road surface and it's slightly elevated, most likely that's an intentional speed table, which is a slight raising of the road surface. It's similar to a speed hump in that it's a wider area. It is intended to make you slow down a little bit. Doesn't have that much effect. In fact, some people will just not slow down for them at all and they'll just pump over it. But a lot of times they coincide with pedestrian crossings as well. So elevating a pedestrian crossing like that, making it kind of a combination marked crossing with a different material and slightly elevated to try to encourage vehicles to slow down, that's a speed table. So we could potentially recommend one without recommending all. We could say yes to all, we could say no to all. But we don't have any data from other towns to support their use. We can discuss that later. That said, we do have data from at least one other town that actively prohibits them in Connecticut, and that's New Britain. I reached out to them and confirmed. I talked to their public works associate director or somebody like that about a month ago. They directed me to a document on their website from June of 2023, where the public works department apparently had the authority for the town to say no to speed humps and bumps. They didn't mention speed tables, but they presented a long list of reasons why they did not support their use. And to summarize, it's things we've heard before. It slows emergency vehicles. They're difficult to see during winter storms. They require pavement striping and signage that is costly. They reduce speeds to as low as 5 miles per hour, which can result driving over them and result in significant vehicle damage. They only work on low speed, low volume roads. They have some sort of noise level associated with them. I don't necessarily agree with that one. They note that the average vehicle speeds aren't actually often reduced where they are placed. Again, as Jeff mentioned, people go over them, they slow down, and then they speed up to make up the difference. And then they result in increased wear and tear on vehicles, and they have a negative impact on air quality and energy consumption. So that was what New Britain said. I wasn't able to find any town that had something on their website that said these are why we love speed bumps and humps. So I think we do need to potentially wait for information that Jeff is gathering from Mansfield and other towns to advise before we recommend any usage of them in town. I don't know if we have anything we wish to do in terms of speed bumps, humps, or tables at this meeting. Right.
I would,
Beth, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like to say that I strongly oppose them. I did give the Board of Selectmen a memo that had the highlights of pros and cons, and the cons strongly oppose any pros that are in rural areas. It's one thing if it's in an urbanized area where you're trying to slow it in front of a school or something like that. But again, it'll slow the traffic at the speed bump itself, but nowhere else. So to be effective, you have to place them every 300 feet,
All
which
right,
is
Hey,
not
Beth,
feasible.
would you do a quick search for that and send it to Jen and we'll include it in the minutes? I
Yep, I'll
remember that.
send it right now.
It was like a year or two ago you put that together.
I can send it off to her right now.
Great, thank you.
I guess I should ask, is anybody actively in favor right now of speed bumps or humps or tables in town? Because if there's no support for it, maybe that suggests that we want to officially recommend not to adopt them.
I think we should wait and hear what Jeff has to say.
Sounds good. Are there other alternatives for speed control or traffic safety that we wish to consider?
Is this part of your mumble strip thing?
Yes, that is one of them.
Yeah, I brought that last week when we were gathering the info on that. I did go listen to them. And I gathered some information. I think this came from T2. I went back and looked, but I think it came from T2, this statistical that I have here. They were not audible on the recording that I did of somebody driving over them twice. I did it. There was no change between a car going by and a car going by and going over them. I couldn't catch it in the recording. As a person on the side of the road, I could barely hear it. And that's all I have. I mean, they seem effective in sort of giving people a heads up if they're going over the line. And so, I don't know.
Now, we have them on state roads in town, but not town roads, is that correct?
Some roads,
Some.
because they're not by the lake on 87, that
For
was the
sure.
whole
No.
thing, yeah.
And we're,
They're in Hebron on Route 66, but not in Columbia on Route 66. I don't know where else they are. I don't think they're anywhere in town. You had said to go to Mansfield, right? Yeah, I don't think we have them in town.
no, there's, the most obvious one to me is if you're on Route 6 going into Willimantic, they're all along there.
Mhm.
And I will note that even if there is concern over their noise, that noise is the sound of warning a vehicle that you're about to travel into the opposite lane. And if there's another car in that lane, you can have a very large noise when the two intersect. So I honestly feel like it'd be a little better to have that occasional rumble noise to alert a driver, you're somewhere you shouldn't be. Then suddenly we have cars ending up off the road in people's yards or in people's houses, so. But it's good to hear that they aren't terribly loud. Should be very uncommon that those sounds go off anyway. Now,
Yeah, just so for the record, DOT recommended on 87 on our sharp curves to use mumble strips only in the center lane. So they're not on the left and right. So that's even fewer places the car could hit a mumble strip. It's only center. And if you're across the center, you couldn't be having problems.
Jeff, in your experience, are there frequent center line violations on 87 that lead to crashes, or is there greater concern about vehicles going off the side of the road?
Most of our vehicle accidents in my career here have been off the road, always to the passenger side. It's been a long time since I've seen a head-on 87. It's always to the passenger side wreck.
And it makes sense. You've got those curbs, people
Yep.
take them too fast, aren't paying attention, road conditions, you know. I think I would be interested to see why DOT isn't recommending putting them on the shoulders along 87 or literally everywhere they have them in the center. Especially if our experience is that we're seeing cars go off the road more than we're seeing them cross the center line.
They came and gave a whole presentation in a town meeting. You could probably find the minutes if you want the answer to that.
I-
Send that to you.
Sure.
I understood that there was a width, a 14 foot, and I don't know if those are 14 feet from the yellow to the white, and maybe that has something to do with it.
Probably there is some sort of width. That said, I've seen them on very narrow shoulders before, so they can put them in very small areas. They can put them literally on the white shoulder line if they wanted to. Now that said, we're talking about state roads here. Would we ever want to consider them for town roads? Beth, we don't currently have the capacity to install mumble strips on town roads, correct?
No, we don't have any in town. I would say we couldn't do the edge mumble strips. Our roads aren't wide enough. And you'd want to really check crash data before you just randomly put them, because I don't know that we've had a lot of crashes with lane departures on our residential roads.
And that's kind of what Jeff is saying, so. It doesn't necessarily sound like throwing mumble strips onto, town roads is going to solve anything. That said, I think putting them wherever on state roads, wherever they will allow them, is certainly not going to hurt things. And if they're willing to consider putting them onto the sides of the roads as well, I think that would be beneficial, but that's something we'll have to look into as to exactly why they were not interested in pursuing that, so.
Well, and you said that
DOT,
DOT was interested on 87, that was their point now.
they want,
We had a whole proposal for 87 around
they do want to put them on the shoulders?
not the shoulders, they want them in the center.
Okay, but Jeff is saying we don't get head-on collisions really on 87, we get vehicles going off the side of the road, so.
But the center would rumble if you're, depending on how you take the curve. I think what happens is, Jeff, you can confirm this. Isn't it because of distracted driving or excessive speed that they don't start their curve soon enough? So that they're actually going across the center line
No.
because they're not
when,
in the curve.
so the last few that we've had on 87, the ones that have ended up in the person's front lawn
Right,
are not negotiating the turn at all and are going straight. So you're not even touching the center line, you're just going straight and veering towards your right, which is your passenger side, and going off the roads. They're not
okay,
they're not cutting across the center line into the turn and then going that way. They're literally not even negotiating into the turn. So when we have the ones over by the dam, and I've known this family forever, the husband and wife that live there in the corner by the dam, vehicles just don't even go into the corner, they go straight. And that's why they end up in their front lawn or down over the embankment.
and as a result of that public hearing, the conclusion was we asked DOT to come back with not just centerline mumble strips, but also lighted warnings or increased signage warning that hazardous curves are ahead. I think they did put in chevrons.
Mhm,
Those are in there.
mhm.
Yes, they did put more signage up, but it's not, you're in a dark corner. There's not like there's a street light there. And to be honest, most of the people that have crashed there are not from town. They're usually coming from a establishment that is to our south, and they're traveling home. And Route 87 is the cut point. So even the other ones that are up by the old Shumway property on 87, the last few wrecks we've had there in their lawns, there haven't been town residents.
Okay.
Do we have any data for what crashes have happened since they increased the signage?
Oh.
Versus like prior to, if it made any difference?
I'm sure you can put in, what ifs in the data mapping for crashes.
It'd just be curious to know if it made any tangible difference.
So it seems like it would be useful to have the mumble strips on the white lines that on Route 87.
Potentially, but Jeff, do you think that if we had had mumble strips on the sides of the road, it would have had an effect on the driver, or are they just going so straight that by the time they start rumbling, they're already in the front yard?
Agree. I think I agree with you.
Yeah.
By the time they would realize it, it's too late. I mean, because you're only gonna hit that strip for a second, and it's gonna be too late to pull the wheel. They're just going straight, and it shows. But all the ones we've gone to, they're just going straight. They're not turning into the corner. I think like in front of the Shumway house, which is into the first corner going towards when you go down the straightaway and you go into that first corner before Whitney, coming from the center, like we should put signage there saying it's a sharp corner. That is a not a sweeping, but a long banking corner of the first one. Then you have the second one that takes you to Whitney, and then you come back the third one over by the spillway. I think more signage is needed. It's kind of like the stop sign they put on Millstream Road where it lights up. Not saying you have to make every one of them light up because people will complain, but if we just did something in that area where there's no houses, that would get people to slow down.
Do you think we need guardrails with reflector lights on them?
No, I mean you're not going to be able to do it in the first one. That's people's property.
Well, I'm sure the state owns the right of way, but
Right.
considerable, at least 4 feet.
Right. Correct. But the problem is it's all bank. So they're going to have to cut the bank back to get those in. And we're looking for a kind of a quicker fix than a long term. That's more to be more long term. They're going to have to do a study because of the lake and all that. If we could just do some more signage that we have, and I think that's a quicker fix.
Old signage.
Do I ask DOT for more signage, light up signs?
Well, I think they need to follow up with what we asked them. We could ask again, Jen, what was the name, Rob?
Rob.
Robbie. I think Robbie needs to. We'll, I know we've asked, we'll ask again.
Okay, what are we
We're
specifically?
specifically asking for, alternatives besides mobile strips, which we're not really opposed to.
Just doesn't necessarily gonna help.
We're not sure that's the solution, that some other forms of solution to identify the severity of the curves that you're approaching and the fact that if you're going too fast or you're not in the curve properly, you're not gonna make it. I don't know how you say that. Dangerous curve ahead.
I was just gonna say that,
That's usually
Something that
when you read
sticks out.
dangerous curve ahead.
not just a sign that like they're gonna, they're gonna miss, I'm saying like something that says, hey. We're making it very aware that this is dangerous.
So you're not gonna make it if you're flying.
I know dangerous curve ahead has certain requirements in MUTCD, so they might be like, oh, it's just short of that, so.
But we're asking them just something to
Beforehand.
beforehand
When
to
you get
alert
there,
the driver.
beforehand.
You know, usually when you see those serious curve signs, well,
Yeah.
I better be slowing down.
At least you're gonna be aware.
Okay.
We're talking to.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily sound like we are looking to push more rumble mumble strips anywhere in particular in town. Anything else to say on that topic?
I'm not against them, but it'd be, if there's no like crash data to support them,
Right.
it sort of seems.
And that's
Right.
kind of what it sounds like.
I think if they're gonna do them anyway, like they are doing on some of the roads, and that's good, they'll do them anyway on
Yeah.
their, where they see fit. And hopefully it will help, but
But it definitely sounds like we're not saying go put them all over town. Okay. Any other recommendations we wish to consider. Cause I know speed bumps humps, we still need more data, although it does sound like we're leaning in the direction of not recommending them. I just wanna be able to go to the board of selectmen and say, hey, we considered options and.
What about the automated, ticketing?
We'll get there next. Jeff, did you say something?
Nope, not at all.
And Jeff, you're on the speed humps, so we're waiting for Jeff's report back.
Yes.
The two towns he's looking into. Okay,
So automated traffic enforcement, we have the recommendation we made a couple months ago. I don't know if we have anything new to add there.
we do, I interviewed Marlboro.
Yes, beautiful.
So, Mike Rhodes is in charge of the program. He's, one of the full-time policemen that reports to a resident trooper. Every day, he starts his day by looking at the ticket data that the system provides. I think it provides them with packets of 20 tickets, possible tickets. On a normal day, he receives 30 to 35 tickets or speeders. And they're set at 10 miles. You have to be going 11 miles an hour or more to trigger. So they went with the, minimum of 10 miles. So it's 11. And you get a ticket. He analyzes the tickets. He said when he comes in after a weekend on Monday, he might have close to 200 tickets to look at. But usually he takes in 10 to 20 minutes a day to review tickets. And what he's reviewing is he said, since his name is on the ticket, he wants to make sure everything lines up, which means that he can clearly read the license plate. That the color of the car matches the color of the car that the license plate triggered from DMV. So if it says it's a green Honda, he wants to make sure it's a green Honda. He said the problem they've uncovered is that if the license plate has a commercial designation, a license plate that's one example it said Willie. I think it was Willie. Willie commercial and Willie not commercial are two different people. Well, Willie commercial speeds through and blows these cameras all the time. Willie not commercial has his license plate on his garage. It's a retired car that doesn't exist anymore, but he keeps getting tickets, not commercial. So they realized this, that they had to be very careful that it's the right car. Anyway, that's one nuance of it. But so at nighttime, sometimes in the dark, he couldn't clearly make out the car to verify color and make and model and all that, just license plate. So he never issues those tickets if it's too dark out.
Interesting.
Right.
Do we know who their vendor is?
Yes, it's Declan. And he gave more. Okay, so the process is after he issues the tickets, the second step is another officer by the name of Doug Bernier. And Doug looks at any appeals online. So you have an option to say, the 6 reasons plus the 7th is anything else that you might think of. So Doug reads those appeals and decides if they're valid. Either he says, no, that's not a valid reason and kills it on the first attempt. And if they try a second attempt for an appeal for a hearing, if he issues a hearing, then once a month they line up hearings. And he said usually that'll be about 8 hearings a month. Of those 8, 4 won't even show up. But they set up Zoom meetings for the hearings. And there's an officer assigned to the online hearings and the town attorney comes in by Zoom for the online hearings. So that's their process. The hearings, as I was stating, is a 2-step process. You have the first, you contest online. The second person reviews for appeals, and the second is a virtual hearing. And he said, since this started in September to January, they've had 4,438 tickets. 4,222 have been first offenses. 35 got voided for reasons. Fines that have been paid to date is $181,525. Fines unpaid to date, still in collection, is $103,355. Not that those won't be paid, but the next step would be to send collections.
And many of them are probably either still in the mail, sitting on someone's desk,
Right.
so.
And then also one last thing is Jen and I interviewed Gail Scranton, who is the executive assistant to the town manager. She said she does handle complaints of people walking in the office. They go to her and they ask a lot of questions and want to know how they got this ticket or why they, she explains the process, what they need to do online to rebut the ticket. And she also handles lots of calls from the media. Media is trying to gather a lot of data on number of tickets, reason for tickets, number of appeals, number of reasons for appeals. And why have some appeals been given? So media is trying to figure all that out. And the policeman, Mike Rhodes, does think the system works great in the sense that it has slowed down traffic considerably in their area, which is, it's amazing that you speed in this area, because he drove it with me, and I drove it myself previously. It's a school zone crossing, and then 3 walk crossings in a row for all the lake neighborhoods to get to the lake. So there's 4 crossings in this speed cameras in that area. And you're warned with 3 signs before the speed camera. And I think they went overboard, saying you're about to go through a speed enforcement camera, you're about to go through the speed enforcement, and people still go blowing through it.
It sounds like they put together a good system and they're erring on the side of caution in terms of how they operated the second appeal hearing process. That's not necessarily something required by statute to do it at the town level. After the first appeal process, the next one by statute would be to go to circuit court, superior court, something like that. So that's good that they have that additional option for.
And I'm not sure, do you think circuit court would be for, I think for local ticket, you have to set up your own court system. Appeal system.
That is not how I've interpreted the state statute. You need an avenue to consider appeals. And then if you deny the appeal after that, they have to go beyond the town's reckoning,
Okay,
so.
Mark, have we spoken to our town attorney about any of this? Like
no,
how it would?
I could address him how Marlboro's doing it and see what his thoughts are.
I'd be curious to know, I'd also be curious to know what their billable hours are associated with
Right,
having to be involved in the process.
well, I know the billable hours, so.
Yeah.
I could calculate and I could get a sense for how long the appeal process takes.
Yep,
Do we know what the normal daily volume is along where that traffic camera is positioned? This,
Oh, for how many tickets versus cars driving?
yeah,
I could find that out.
that would be.
Do we know why the press is asking for this information?
I think they're just trying to build interesting articles.
Yeah, it's
Because this is a hot topic
very
around
controversial.
the state. And the controversy is that people feel it's not right to be able to get a ticket without a chance to fix your ticketing officer. And talk to them before the ticket's written. But it is clearly a ticket solely based on speed.
Or the issue that I've seen is articles that are popping up, and it's popped up within the last week. I wasn't even researching it, and it came up. Was that some towns out west are starting to, the ones that have had the cameras for some time, are starting to turn them off because of the present threat in some areas with ice. So town officials have deemed it where they're gonna turn the cameras off because they feel ice is collecting the data. So are we gonna go down that rabbit hole here is my concern,
So
after we spend the money.
jumping on that, this was printed yesterday, I believe, February 3rd, CT Insider. About how Connecticut license plate data is being used for ICE purposes.
Oh,
And
is
they
it?
go through all the nitty gritty of what towns
Oh,
and
so
how many
you have a
times.
good one on that?
Yeah, it came out this morning. I only made one copy because it's super long, but
Do you want me to make some more?
if you want to, I just
Yeah,
didn't
we don't
wanna.
really need the color.
Yeah, I couldn't find a better way to print it. It puts all the ads
Mark.
in.
Hey, Mark,
Yeah,
Send
could
it.
we just, instead of save paper, can we just have that scanned in and sent to us all to read?
Yeah,
oh, that's a great
yeah, I'm
idea,
just gonna
yeah.
look it up and send the link. It might have a paywall. That's why I.
Oh,
I don't know. All right, okay, I'll do that. I'll scan it.
Okay.
So I will note that there was conversation about how the collected data would be used when they were originally forming the statute. And Connecticut did something that I don't think any other state had done, which was they put an expiration into the statute on how long that data can be held.
So if you wanna take a read of that, it basically explains how the laws we've passed and these systems didn't work together.
Yeah,
And
because
that
30
things
days
happen
is not
that
enough.
weren't intended to happen in large volume.
Right, so this is talking about other traffic cameras that have been around for many years that don't have anything to do with automated traffic enforcement. These automated traffic enforcement systems are not complex network systems. They're kind of dumb cameras that just sit there until data is pulled off of them for tickets. That data doesn't get disseminated to like a permanent database or anything anywhere. It stays with the town and the vendor. I think they're considering more traffic cameras that the state has had around for many years to monitor traffic through the area, and also private cameras and things like that are along the sides of the road, so.
Well, I think it depends on who your vendor is, cause
Yes.
that one's talking about Flock and a lot of issues that have gone on with Flock. And even though at the federal level, they banned ICE from using Flock, they're going to local departments and still accessing Flock data. So it's sort of interesting to see a comprehensive review of what's actually happening versus a law someone passed in hopes that something didn't happen. Cause it's intent and actuality are different sometimes.
I do know that the three vendors that CROG approved for automated traffic enforcement in this region, they do not operate block cameras. They don't have any interaction with that data outside of
At
what
this
they
time.
use.
I'm just saying, cause Flock goes and buys different companies, so we can't guarantee that won't change.
I would argue that even if that company that's operating a traffic camera were purchased, they cannot just provide that data to anyone because of how the statute is written.
Or they have. It's a big deal.
I'm not a lawyer.
So we'll read this article and discuss it. I'll get the volumes from Marlboro. Just so we see volumes versus number of tickets. What is the ratio of speeding versus total volume?
Cause I also do know with cameras, and it's not a speed camera, but in Brown, they had, was it 1,000, they had Brown shooting, 1,200 cameras. They were all turned off, and it took them a week to find this person. And it was not because of the help of the cameras that were on the university, they were all turned off. So they spent all this money for what?
But they turned it off for political reasons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so are we gonna go down there? You know, that's my concern, and we need to discuss it.
One important technical thing I should note is these are not video cameras. The only time they're ever active is when they detect a speeder. They take a fixed photo. There's no video recording, which I'm actually slightly concerned about because every other municipality I've worked with, when you get a speed camera ticket, it's accompanied with still photos as well as a video of you actually doing the speeding, so.
Cause you wanna see what happened before and after.
But places are starting to move away from that, and only doing fixed photos, but these are not always on video cameras. So there's nothing to turn on or off per se.
Are they doing that to save data space?
I would imagine, that'd be a lot.
It's also a much cheaper piece of equipment when it's just a photo camera as opposed to a video camera.
I'm not against doing anything cost effectively, but sometimes when you go down the rabbit hole of cheap, you know, we're gonna get cheap services too.
As far as I know, every automated traffic enforcement camera vendor operating in Connecticut is fixed photo as opposed to video. But that's because statute does not require video.
The other question I have is how come there's no points on the license when you have cameras?
Because it's a civil citation, so it doesn't interact with the DMV system in that way.
And I think if you escalate it to that, it would have to be issued by a policeman that would be in
Right.
the state court system.
And that's how it is nationally with these programs, and kind of how they've set them up for many years is, yes, you're gonna get this fine. It's closer to a parking ticket than it is to a speeding ticket.
Right, because speeding ticket could be $250 versus this
Yeah.
$50 ticket.
So Washington, the town of Washington has two cars that they're trying to find. They believe it's the same driver who constantly changes their plates. And I guess this has been, they didn't, not very accurate information as far as when the reporting happened. But I know it's been going on for approximately a week now, that they're trying to locate this car, and they do have cameras. Now, they only showed us on the news, still photos, but state police are now looking for this car because of the changed plates. So there is ways around it, and I think if we're gonna go down and look into this, we gotta discuss them. How are we gonna deal with these? I don't wanna just think that we put them up and then we solved our problem.
Jeff, did you have something?
I guess it's radio.
Okay. No, I've read stories of the lengths people will go to avoid setting off automated traffic cameras, and it's like, is that really easier than just not speeding? Doing this plate swapping and fraud and all that, that's what you wanna do, sure.
The reason why I say is because I use a lot of cameras, I have a lifelong career of using cameras, and I'm not gonna claim to be an expert on it. I just used it as a tool in my job, whether it was as a corrections officer, whether it was as security, we even had them in the military. We used them in Afghanistan. But I did not see where it was 100%. I'm not even gonna say it was 50%. It was just a thing we looked at because we couldn't rely on them. We didn't identify. We saw people, but it was sometimes very hard to identify. You see these cameras where they say this guy robbed a 7-Eleven, they show you the camera. It's like, he could be my brother and I don't even know who he was.
Anything else on this item or any other recommendations we want to consider for the Board of Selectmen?
Was there any more information on seeing if we could identify that area 66 as a school zone or why it's not a school zone?
Right in front of the firehouse?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Jeff. Historically, because we finally got a crosswalk,
Right,
which we didn't normally have,
right.
because that's new.
I would imagine because it evacuates, like the school has to go over to the fire department if there's an issue.
Actually, I don't think they go to the firehouse. They either go to here, the church, or I'm not sure where else.
So they still have to get across the street.
We don't-
right?
We don't know why the crosswalk went up. There's really no explanation for it.
Yeah, they just notified me that it went up. There wasn't any pre-notification.
I don't see why we couldn't ask for school zones, because it is a school zone, to be put, signs to be put up.
Ask DOT for school zone markings?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll start there. And that might also give a much bigger ticketing capability for the trooper.
Yeah.
Because a school zone would come with serious limitations. And that might start slowing you down before the 87-66 intersection.
I think it helps people to know it's a school zone.
Right,
You don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
other
people-
places you're driving, you see a school zone and you kind of go, oh, okay.
I think if we're gonna stop the people, I want it to be for a cause, and I say points on the license, because it carries, it's not just the fine that you get the points if you're a repeat offender.
right, and that's the trooper.
Because I'm gonna tell you, I don't know if I'm the only one, but I keep bringing it up. I keep getting passed even on the back roads.
Oh, me too, going home at night, it's unreal.
So these are not people who are just going 5 miles an hour over the speed limit. Oh, you know, I lost my head, I didn't know how fast I was going. People are intentionally breaking the law. And I think that's what we need to go after. And if you catch these people, you're gonna see, is it really a catch and release issue at the state level? But then we need to talk to the state. They keep reoffending.
Yeah, it's
Laws
hard,
don't
it's
mean
hard to catch them.
Yeah, I mean, from talking to Gary, he doesn't always catch them, but he said people calling it in is at least helpful. Cause they know like when and,
But if we start catching them at the school zones when they're there, and we, you know, and when you catch them, because I get it, they're probably gonna speed 50 times and you're gonna catch them once. But we gotta start somewhere. And I believe it's not just what we do here in Columbia, we gotta talk to the state here and say, hey, how come this person, you know, we gave them to you, how come you're releasing them?
Well, that'd be a question for the trooper, because
Yes,
he is
I
getting
agree.
tickets.
I agree, and I'm sure he has regulations he has to follow. Trust me, I worked with the state. I did DOC different than what he did, but sometimes I'd catch people doing things in the act and it'd come down to it way up and come. Really? I caught him doing a felony inside a prison and yet you let him go.
Okay,
So are we suggesting we want additional trooper enforcement in town? I'm just trying to,
Yeah,
well, anything that resembles.
Mark, was there an update? Wasn't Gary trying to get a grant for additional troopers out of town? Is there any update on that?
I haven't heard anything.
No.
I do know he's voluntarily working with the other towns, and they're gonna be doing what the troop is calling a concentrated traffic enforcement effort, where you move like 4 troopers together,
yes.
do a serious traffic effort, and then move to the next town.
How long does that last?
Tell us what it is, but do we have a date for that?
No,
Is it like a one-time deal, like for 1 month, or is it?
Sounds like it'd be for a day.
Per day?
I,
Thought it was an ongoing effort from what they said in the.
I'm not sure how, I don't have any details, other than this is something that, from the top, the lieutenant wants to see happen.
Regardless, there are not enough troopers in the state of Connecticut to catch all of these things. But we could.
No,
No, but I'd rather.
You're not gonna get it all.
Present.
No, and we can go as far as saying, we recommend the town hires another state trooper. These are recommendations we can make, fully understanding how expensive that would be, but. You know, Board of Selectmen wanted recommendations, didn't necessarily say we needed to figure out how to pay for them.
I have no question.
Yes.
There was talk about requesting a left turn lane at the intersection of 66 and
That is in process.
87. Okay, and also wondering about whether crosswalks at that point, if there was a turn light, would that change anything about allowing people to cross the street?
So my understanding is because there aren't really sidewalks in that area, they're probably not gonna be inclined for crosswalks. So it's a little bit of,
business.
it's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing. You put crosswalks, maybe we'll put sidewalks. You put sidewalks, maybe put crosswalks, but.
There are crosswalks there.
There's one.
Yeah.
on one side.
It's not
But
a
there, but
push
you
button.
don't get a light.
Right. Yeah, there's certainly no signal for the crosswalk, no push button, nothing. But I do think that once they reconfigure it with the turn lanes, that's maybe a step that would support pedestrian traffic and putting in crosswalks there at a later date. So, one day at a time.
Do we have a lot of pedestrians crossing there?
Well,
Yeah.
no, because you can't really cross these.
So that's.
Because there's a whole chicken and
Chicken
the
egg,
egg.
right.
thing.
So there would probably be more pedestrians had, if there was a crosswalk. You know?
Well, there's a lot of pedestrians on 87, a lot.
Okay.
'Cause I live on
I-
87.
Right, I see, yeah.
And there is this whole town center here, and then there's that intersection, so it seems like people would cross it if they could. I would if I could more easily, but, it's just.
All right, any other recommendations we wish to potentially consider, because right now we have nothing else on the table to potentially recommend other than maybe speed bumps, humps and tables, aggregate more data.
I'd like to consider more law enforcement versus.
Great,
I like good old fashioned policing.
Mhm.
Every time we try to leave it, because we try to cut the budget, we end up right back to it. Same thing, when I was in corrections, they'd always try to cut posts, they balance the budget, and then we were right back to now forced overtime. Cause now we're trying to make up for, because, you know what I'm saying, like you leave something open, and then that's human nature. Human nature, people are gonna react, so if we, I think good old fashioned policing is the answer.
And the ticket, automated ticketing, we did recommend that.
we did, and our troopers commented that he'd be freed up to go after other offenses if he wasn't sitting around giving speeding tickets in places they had automated enforcement instead. We know another trooper full-time would be very expensive, but again, Board of Selectmen wanted recommendations at least from a traffic and safety perspective. They get to figure out how to pay for it, or if they see that that's expensive and there's other cheaper recommendations they can pursue. There's that, but is there anything, any?
Mumble strips on the sides, that was something we talked about.
It was something we talked about, but it sounds like we're only interested in having those on state roads, which the state is, you know, we asked them for them or they're gonna put them in anyway. It doesn't sound like we need to take action on those. And it doesn't sound like we want to put them on town roads.
Can we put, signs that tell you how fast you're going when you drive through town?
So speed feedback signs, good. I think those are fantastic in terms of a cost to effectiveness ratio, which is to say they don't cost a lot and they don't help a lot. But they also don't help zero. Like they are about as effective as a terrible speed bump.
Do they collect data?
Yes. We've had a couple in town. I don't know if we have any actual data from those yet. If so, it'd be great to have them, but in my general experience, if you put a speed feedback sign where there is a speeding problem, people will slow down a little bit and you're gonna get people who don't realize they're speeding. And they'll actually slow down because they want to actually adhere to speed limits. It's not gonna do anything for people who know they're speeding, don't care they're speeding. And they're gonna take the sign and say, cool, I'm going 20 over, that's exactly what I wanna do.
You know, when you start hitting 20, then it's obviously, you're pretty much doing it intentionally, or you're just a heavy flow.
But in terms of, I think they're effective, that's why T2 Center keeps giving them out to towns. And I think that's something we could recommend Board of Selectmen go out and get a whole bunch of them and put them in.
And they're not stationary, correct? Because they're on the
They
trailers.
can be permanent, they can be mobile.
I think there's a lot of places that those are useful.
And we can move them around at will where we see.
Great. If we're gonna make any recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, we need motions.
So what are these called now? These are called,
Speed feedback signs, that's one of, there's a lot of these.
so I made a proposal to recommend speed, feedback signs.
Second.
Any further discussion? I'm allowing extra time for people online. All right, all those in favor of recommending increased usage of speed feedback signs to the Board of Selectmen?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Jeff, I from, all
Aye.
right. Opposed, nay, unanimous. Great, we did one.
I'd like to make a motion for increased law enforcement presence.
Second.
All right, discussion. I'm gonna just throw out there that the town is not going to say yes to this, but I do think that that is something they need to actively say no to on
Yes.
the record.
I agree.
And when they say no to that, hopefully makes it easier for them to adopt some other cheaper alternatives.
If we can put in our information to them, and I don't know, but I worked for the state police in Vermont. Vermont doesn't have enough of a budget or manpower to run 3 24-hour shifts.
Mm.
So they have 2 shifts and there's nobody on duty from a certain time at night, about 2 a.m. until 7 a.m. They can call people out if something happens, there's an accident, a crime, whatever. So they have on-call people, but they don't have people actively working. So one of the things they did, because what happened once people realized this was happening was people were speeding up and down 91 aggressively in sports cars in the middle of the night. So one of their solutions to that problem was running different, I believe they were federal grant campaigns, click it or ticket, different things, just to have people on the road. They were paid in different capacities, but sometimes just literally the presence deters. So you can look at different grants that don't necessarily identify speeding as the issue. There's been one with seatbelts, but they're there. And people aren't gonna go screaming past the state trooper sitting there, even if they're enforcing something different, because they don't know who's paying them and why.
I agree there are options out there that the town can pursue that would potentially make troopers in the middle of the night slightly more financially feasible. Realistically, is that something we can do in the long term?
We don't know.
Well, if we
It hasn't been
if
pursued.
we had the automated ticketing, that would generate funds that could be used to do more programs within the town related to traffic.
That is
correct?
something worth noting is that automated traffic enforcement revenue can be used to hire state troopers. Just a fact I'm putting out there. I don't think, I think Columbia has historically used them long in the past. I mention it not because I necessarily recommend it, but constables are a thing in Connecticut. I think there's 2 versions of them, the ones where they basically are empowered to do paperwork, serve warrants and things like that, and then there are the ones with actual law enforcement authority. I don't know if that's anything we wish to consider. The short version that I've gotten from towns I know that don't use them is it's a liability they don't wish to consider. But they are far cheaper than a resident trooper, state trooper of any sort. Just putting it out there for completeness, but we don't necessarily have to include that in any recommendation. But we do have a motion to recommend to the Board of Selectmen that we hire additional law enforcement officers.
I didn't say higher, I just said increased presence.
Increased presence. We
They
should
can
probably
do
make that,
whatever way they see fit.
okay, I'm fine leaving it open-ended.
Yeah, this way they don't have to hire another
They
resident
can
trooper, they
contract,
can just.
they can do whatever they want.
Increase law enforcement presence. Very good. Any other discussion on that? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Beth? Aye. Jeff? Are you there, Jeff?
Sorry, it's in mute. I abstain.
Very good. 401. All right, any other recommendations we wish to consider at this time? Okay, I think we can close out that item. In the interest of time, do we have any new reports? Okay, we'll table those till a future date, once we're better equipped with more recommendations we can act upon perhaps. Any correspondence? Audience of citizens, no. Board member comments, anyone have anything in brief they wish to say?
I'll just add that I wrote up what I told, and it should make the article or the magazine as soon as it's published. When's that go out, Jen? March?
Great,
Yes, yep.
that's really good news. Thank you, Joe. Anybody else? We've reached the end of the agenda, so. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn the meeting.
I said that.
The meeting is adjourned at 10:04. Meeting closer.
Have a nice day.
Good night.
And there is a meeting in 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yep. And then we'll